Okay, welcome to today's podcast. Itai, how are you doing?
I'm okay, thank you, Rabbi.
Very good. We week before Rosh Hashanah.
Baruch Hashem, as we say.
Yeah, week before Rosh Hashanah. The Shabbos is uh, we had Shabbos Lichot and everything. We're coming up to Rosh Hashanah, and I just want to mention one thing before we carry on, is that we say, which is a relative, which is, can be a very interesting discussion, how on Rosh Hashanah, after we blow the shofar, yeah, we say that today is the birthday of the world, and that if we say to Hashem, if we like your children, yeah, then you should have mercy on us like your children, and if we are like your servants, right, then you should be gracious to us and give us the judgment, give us good judgment, um, as a good judgment, right? So we see something very,
Not just fairly.
right? Yeah, yeah, not just fairly, but we ask for, um, we want you to be gracious to us.
No,
Yeah,
it says chesed, certain
yeah,
chesed.
yeah. Shetachanenu v'soisika or mishpatenu oyam kadosh. That's what it says. So we see that we have this very interesting relationship with Hashem. We have this relationship as a son, as a child, and as a
Father,
and yeah, no, as a father-son relationship, and as a slave
master.
master relationship. And we know there's a lot of times when we speak about Avinu Malkeinu, our father, our king, you know, um, and we have this kind of relationship with
Is it
Hashem.
the dichotomy, you think?
Yeah,
Believe
sometimes,
in,
sometimes,
yes.
sometimes we serve Hashem like children, and sometimes we serve Hashem like slaves. What's the difference between a son and a slave? You know what the difference is?
You tell me, you say your point.
When you serve something as a slave, you don't really want to do it, yeah, but you're forced to do it, So you don't really have the enthusiasm, and you're not really, you just don't want you want to do it because if you don't, you're going to get the slave's going to punish you.
Slave
But
master.
yeah, the slave master. So there's certain things which we're not so enthusiastic about, etc. But if we serve Hashem but there are certain parts of our Judaism where we serve Hashem like children, where we want the best for. We do it out of enthusiasm, out of the love of our Father, and these are the things we ask from Hashem. So and this relationship is really dependent on us. You know, how it's from Hashem's perspective, from God's perspective, we all are perfect in a way. Yeah, I know you don't. I know that's a bit contentious, but from Hashem's perspective, you know, but from our perspective, we have failings and shortcomings, and therefore, if we sometimes we think that if we do the right thing, we'll get we'll get some good. If we do the wrong thing, we'll get punished, and that's like a slave. But if our mentality is more like children, that we want not everything we do is for the best of the Father,
Yes,
do
yes.
you understand?
I've seen it a lot with Chabad. It's very Chabad. I told you about my experiences going and visiting in the yeshiva when I see the young men there. And I asked them about it once several years ago about hell, about punishment, about sins. It's really in depth, but I was interested in that perspective because it's a very common perspective. And especially, I think, very common in people who don't know the concept of God. Let me just say something. Sorry, I'm not trying to create a tangent. I just want to explain something. I had a conversation once with non-Jewish people about God, and one of them who doesn't have, she comes from, let's say, she studied mathematics, okay,
Hmm.
and she said to me something, prove me that God exists, something like that. I told her, you know something, I don't think you even understand the concept of God. I'm not saying that I understand God,
Hmm.
but I think with people, before they even ask for the proof, well, I'm not necessarily intending to try and prove something like that. I've seen a very good proof for the existence of a creator, which for me stands at the same place where with the Euclidean, the same principle of Euclidean proof for the infinite nature of prime numbers. I'm telling
Hmm.
you, it's the same. From there to actually prove that that's Mount Sinai and that's the God who wants you to put tefillin, that's a different story, okay? But that can be actually discussed. Definitely, that definitely can be discussed as well. But the point is that with a lot of people, I find that they don't even understand the concept of God.
Yes.
I understand what it really means. But coming back to the original point that I wanted to make, now I almost forgot it. What was it? Just remind me, bring me back to where I
In,
start.
what you started? No, what I was saying
Yeah,
about
please.
if you were how it's our perception and how we relate to.
Yes, yes. So I remember with the yeshiva boys speaking with them, and they used to tell me, we don't think like that. They think like children. They think like children and father, the relationship. They don't think like slave and slave master. I really appreciated it. I'm not sure if in reality it's always going to work. I'm sure there's going to be problems with that. You're going to do something incorrect. You're going to miss something. You're going to your yetzer hara is going to it's going to get the better of you.
Yeah.
It happens. And then you will go and start philosophizing the slave and slave master relationships.
No, but also there's certain aspects of our lives where we have to do something even though we're not enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, okay.
It doesn't have to be just with
No,
commandments.
I'm just,
Yeah, but our everyday relationship,
mhm,
our everyday existence. We wake up in the morning. You wake up in the morning. I wake up in the morning, and there's certain things that we are enthusiastic to do,
mhm,
and there's certain we're not. And those things which are not, we to the side and we do the things that we enjoy.
yes,
Yeah,
okay.
and therefore, what I think the message here is yes, um, you know, we have to try our best to have this father-son relationship, but we have to realize there are certain aspects of our lives which are like a slave and slave master.
I understand, eh?
Yeah. For example, like we discussed many times about people who go to work. You have to go to work. Whatever, you don't have to go to work, but you have to go to work. You have to earn a living. You have to
We
earn.
spoke about the repetition.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine is always reminding me that she watched our podcast and she spoke with me about it. She asked me a lot of questions, which I think going down the alley of what you're suggesting, not suggest. I understand it about the relationship between a father and a son, and what happens if your relationship becomes really difficult, and but not necessarily because you don't want to please your father, it's because you are incapable.
Correct.
You have mental health issues.
Correct.
You understand. So
Correct.
this is where you start feeling, and especially again, if you don't have the background, the teaching, the education, you start feeling like a slave under a slave master, and you are not sure how much mercy and how much compassion this slave master got for you. You
Yeah.
understand?
And
This is very complicated. We should do a show about it.
yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. We.
No, 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 definitely no. But I say more, even more in depth, because I think that mental health issues is something that hardly ever spoken about. I checked some rabbis talking about it. I found that there is still a lot of things to be said about it. I believe. You
Yeah.
understand? At least questions to be asked, and I'm sure that there is a lot written about it as well. I don't think that it was neglected during the ages.
Well, it wasn't. If you look at the beginning parts of the beginning chapters of the Tanya,
Hmm.
from about chapter 16 to 28, around there, it's all speak about, you want to call it a mental health issue or depression. But obviously, that's not talking about clinical depression, where you probably need some clinical professional. I'm not sure. But it's talking about your average, really day to day type of depression, where you know,
Yes, yeah,
where
no.
it stems from, where it comes from, and Judaism has a lot to say about depression because it actually is fundamental to serving God with happiness.
I got to tell you something, and this is where I
Maybe
need.
that's why all the psychologists in Judaism are Jewish.
Obviously, they took it from the Torah. Is Em kol chokhmot, is the mother of all wisdoms, and what Freud is talking about. By the way, you know something? I know that I'm very interested in Jewish scientists and Jewish scholars, especially that came in modern times. But Freud is someone that I haven't investigated too much in depth. I mean, it's more about Einstein, von Neumann, this type of guys. But coming back to what I want to tell you, I remember growing up, as a young adult, very difficult relationship with my mother. Don't want to speak too much about it, but I got to say it anyway. And because of my problems, and she couldn't understand it, she couldn't relate to it, she couldn't accept it. And definitely, my mother is not God, but she is my parent. And that brings you, of course, as humans, we sometimes try to create God in our own image. And we try to think about God as someone like us, one of us. So he would probably think the same. So if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do according to the standards of God, but maybe because I suffered tremendously, I suffered chronically with something that is so terrible, that when I'm not comparing to the suffer of anyone else, but just saying, I know my experience, subjectively, maybe objectively, from professional point of view, and so you try to relate that with this relationship I have with my parent, and then you say, so God probably think, who knows how God looks at me, views me, as what? You understand? She had a lot of issues, so you understand what I'm trying to tell you.
No, can you just
What I'm trying to explain to you is that this relationship between a father and son, or a parent and son, is something I'm trying to relate to my experiences that I had difficult times because I believed that my parents, especially with my mother, could not understand me. You understand me? She couldn't understand my problems.
I understand. So therefore, what you say is that not necessarily the relationship between
No,
child and
but I'm just
father.
telling you that many people, sorry to interrupt this, now you will understand it. I think that many people who actually go through the suffer think about God as someone that is pretty much like the way their parent is going to view
Yeah,
them. You are just some sort, I would not say a loser, but you know what I mean. It's just like, you're a disappointment.
yeah.
You
I
are,
understand. But I think we're talking about an
mm,
ideal parent.
yes.
You know?
By the way, I don't think that God views us like that. I'm just giving you a perception, a very human thing, and especially if you're in a position when you become more emotional because you have to go through the suffer,
Yeah,
and you want to have good relationship with your parents,
yeah.
which I think that by the way most people want, even people who had the most terrible upbringing.
I know, but I do find that a lot of people blame all their problems on their parents.
Yes, and I
Now,
understand.
now whether that's correct or not, I just, so people a lot of the time, it's going to sound a bit harsh, yeah, that there has to come a time where you do an analysis where, yes, okay, fine, your parents and your surroundings, they shape who you are and they
Mm-hmm.
shape your circumstances, but there has to come a time where at
You take
some point, yeah,
responsibility? Yeah. No,
there has to be,
no. Look, as an adult, and I'll tell you something, especially because your parents, I know about my parents, but in general, when you become older and older, your parents are getting much older. I mean, they are obviously at certain ages when it becomes very difficult to open certain things, but also, of course, I don't sit and hold grudges or trying to constantly, yeah, but it's only because of that. No, it's not. Not at all, but I'm just talking about things. I do believe that these things shape you, these experiences, early experiences
absolutely.
you take with you to the rest of your life.
I do. I believe it. I believe that, yes,
It's
certain
not a
experience.
blame game, I got huge respect to my parents, just that you'll understand. I love them.
All right. No, love and
No, but I got huge respect in the sense that I'm not even trying to make these conversations about, oh, you see, but that's only because.
I understand, but you find a lot that you find a lot that people say, well, it's my parents' fault. It
Yeah.
could be.
This is because the ideology, the agenda today is not to take responsibility. It's become infantiles. It's very much. I mean, it sounds almost too basic and too harsh, but it comes back to all these great conversations that we have in Kabbalat Shabbat, the ones that we had, you, your wife, Misha, myself. About things in general. I think it's in the benefit of the agenda to make people behave like infantiles or to constantly blame and not take responsibility, and that I agree with you absolutely about. I'm trying to go to actually point at certain things that I think are actually very important and very crucial to the development of a person. You understand that if you go through certain scars, traumas, they do shape you. But the idea of what is happening today is that you take these things and you constantly indulge in them, or you just don't try to find cure because it's in the benefit, in my opinion, of the system, that you will continue
Hmm.
being what you are. You understand? Instead of trying to get out of that, transcend it.
Yeah, but just to go on the point that you said about the trauma, sometimes the trauma is very subconscious,
Hmm.
and you don't realize that it's actually shaping you. So you try and take responsibility, but you can't really because you don't know the cause or the root or how to, like, you don't know what's really shaped you to realize that, this is what's shaped me, and the
Mm.
reason why I'm doing A, B, and C. um so you don't have, like, okay, what can I work on, because it's so subconscious.
Yes, you don't exactly know how to attack the root cause of it.
Correct. You don't have to take the responsibility,
Yeah.
because you if you don't know that this is the root cause, you don't have to take the next step forward.
I agree with you.
You
Yes.
know, not necessarily always have to know the root cause, by the way. I don't believe you always have to know, and I'm not a psychologist or anything, but I'm just talking about from, sometimes it's just you could realize on like a general, you know, a lot of this stems from um, one's own desire to feel there's a separate existence from God. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but
Because once you think you're in existence, and therefore you, like separate from, then that's when all these emotions come in. And that's why, by the way, and that's very fundamental to definitely Chabad Judaism. Yeah, I'm
mhm.
not saying you have to be a you know like a Pirish. How do you say Pirish? Like a guy who lives in the forest,
I understand, yeah.
No, it's about
Someone who
it's a
separated, secluded
yes, it's
himself
about
from
understanding.
society and
Yes,
just lives with God,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. Like
I know that this is something that Baal Shem Tov was not
no,
for.
exactly.
He was, in fact,
Yeah,
against, I
it's
believe, no?
understanding that you are a vehicle of God. You know, not that you are separate from. You are part of the whole cog. You know, once you get to that realization that you are like, let's say, a finger or a hand or as an analogy, then the outer influence that shape you shouldn't really have the effect on you if you're able to come to that level. And it's a very difficult level to get to, by the way, if you understand what I'm saying.
No, of course, yeah.
It's a very difficult level, and that's what and Judaism actually. Um, Judaism is all about the essence is trying to become one with God.
Yes.
Yeah, trying to get this all these traumas away that we even in Kol Nidre and Rosh Hashanah, all these different Chagim all these different festivals we're coming up now. It's all about getting rid of self.
Yes.
No,
I'll ask you a you know what, again, like I told you, I think it deserves a much bigger podcast or really in depth, but you can always develop it. But someone who really suffers chronically from issues, mental, I'm not talking about someone who got a physical disability that you can see and
yeah,
almost objectively, let's just say someone who is blind and and suffers suffering from terrible depression and wants to have a relationship with God, but cannot go to the mitzvot
cannot do the mitzvahs.
like cannot find the consistency, cannot find the focus, cannot find goes to to do shacharit, and every time he goes to shacharit he goes through well, I'm just using it as a
Analogy.
analogy as hell. He feels like hell. Understand?
Why does he feel like hell when he goes to Shabbos? Why? Because he doesn't want to do it.
Because he goes through because of many things.
Because he doesn't want to be next to
It
people.
depends on the problem of the person. It can be many things. It can be the lack of ability to even how can I say.
Somebody. Okay, so first of all, somebody who's really chronic depression and needs proper, whether it's medical or very
Yeah.
professional. You know, what is the Torah's advice is always go to the doctor. That's that.
Go to the doctor. And if the doctor says this guy is too sick to do it, then it's okay.
Then
Then
it's
they go back. Yeah.
then exactly. It's like somebody who doesn't have an arm. Can
Mm.
he put on tefillin?
No, I understand. Yes,
Understand?
but
If you're ill, you're ill. You know what I mean? It's like you can't. You're not. There's certain mitzvahs that you are obligated to do, but if you are ill, you don't have to. Like, for example, you have an ill person, you can turn on the light for him on Shabbat. There's certain,
yes,
you understand? So it depends on the degree of the illness. You
yes,
understand? But if somebody's just got mild case of depression, he's happy one day, like, you know, doesn't need to go to a doctor, you know, then yeah, the Torah demands him to push through, be like a slave, push through
yes,
it. You understand? Yeah, fine. So you understand, but if you're chronic, obviously the Torah has a perspective on chronic depression, but definitely go to the doctor first. There's no doubt
mm,
about it. The Torah says the doctors are Hashem gives doctors certain power. You know,
mm.
um, that have the ability to heal, not necessarily with the medication they give, but they say that each doctor has a certain angel that you know that's on their shoulder, right? And therefore, if you go to the right doctor, if you get to the right doctor,
I
yeah,
like it. It's a very non-cynical view of doctors. It's very easy to be cynical with doctors. And by the way, I understand it. Why? I understand
there's
why.
many stories. There was a few rabbis. There was I'll tell you two stories that actually were like this. One story was a story from 200 years ago, and one is a recent story where there was a rabbi who only looked for doctors who had a beard. He wouldn't take a doctor without a beard. Now what? You say, so what does that have to do? That has nothing to do with his medical knowledge and
Yeah.
everything. But
It's not with merit.
no, but the fact that he wanted a doctor with a beard showed that there was some sensitivity to spirituality. That he was more inclined. Maybe his angel that was on his shoulder, if you want to call it,
Stronger,
was
yeah,
a
or
much
more.
stronger. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Because we know the beard represents the 13 attributes of mercy, and these are the types of energy you want to be involved with when you need healing. There was another story about a guy who had, I don't know, he had cancer or something, it's some disease that was life threatening, and to he went to a rabbi. He went to the rabbi actually and asked him for a cure, and he said, "This doctor said that, that." So the rabbi said, go to this doctor,
Hmm.
Doctor A. So he went to Doctor A, and he came into Doctor A, um, and I may be getting the specifics wrong, but he came into Dr. A and he sat down and he showed his medical records. And the guy said, I'm sorry, it's terminal. So he says, what are you talking about? The rabbi told me I must come to you. He said, the rabbi told you? Okay, fine. He gave him a box of pills. Take these. The guy went home, took it, whenever the terminal, went away. He came back to the doctor. He said, thank you so much. He said, I never did anything. He said, when you came in here, the diagnosis was you did. You did in a couple of months. You told me the rabbi, I gave you sweets.
Placebo.
It was nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
It was out of my hands by then. I gave you that, and if the rabbi said it means I've had the cure was going to come through me because of the you understand?
I understand. Yeah.
You understand? So that's what and actually very interesting enough, you find out nowadays that doctors give you diagnosis, right? So many times people would come to the rabbi and tell him, the doctor said that I'm going to have this disease and I'm going to pass away, all these things. And the rabbi used to strongly always argue, and he said, doctors don't have the right to tell you the future situation. They only have the ability, according to the Torah, to heal. They can't tell you, they don't have the.
Don't get it.
Hashem didn't
Don't
give
put
them
the head of the prophet.
Hashem didn't give them the
power,
tool.
of prophecy.
Yeah. It's like I told the joke, I must have told it in a podcast about a guy goes to the doctor.
You're good with jokes.
And he says, the doctor says him, he's got 6 months to live. He said, 6 months to live. Well, goes home. Anyway, the doctor phones him, he says, hello, you haven't paid your bill. So he goes, I don't have any money at the moment. He goes, I'll give you another 6 months.
It's very Jewish,
You know?
Very stereotypical. That they said about Benny Leonard. You know how much we like talking about boxing. I'm not going to make it into a boxing podcast now. I'm really enjoying what we are doing. But Benny Leonard, who was a Jewish man from the beginning of the 20th century, one of the greatest champions ever, lightweight. Apparently, until the emergence of Roberto Duran, Manos de Piedra, the Hands of Stone. Do you know him? The great fighter from Panama. He was the first one to defeat Sugar Ray Leonard in a great fight in Canada. Great fight, legendary. And then there was the second fight, where he quitted. It was crazy, absolutely. I mean, the guy was a complete genius of boxing. But before him, there was Benny Leonard. And Benny Leonard said that when he started boxing, his father was a Jewish father, and the mother, especially, was the Jewish mother. He came back home and she said he had like a black eye.
Yeah.
She looked at him and she was going crazy. Oh my God, Beis Mir, she said, go on. She said, and she said to him that, look what happened to him. He went and he fights the boys, look how he behaves. Said to him, tell him off, So he told him off, and then Ben Reynolds came and showed him the money that he made from that fight. He said, oh yeah, when is the next one then?
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's a very, people might say, oh yeah, it's a very Jewish thing, but it's a very immigrant type of story as well, because the best boxer were the immigrants, and Willie Pep was an Italian, came from Italian families, or Italian American. He said similar story about his dad, that his dad was upset seeing him fighting, and then he said, oh, but look the money I made. So he said, okay, go and fight.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
But really, would you tell your daughter, would you tell your son the same?
Absolutely. Depends how big the size of the check is.
In the first. Today it's big, but today you don't need to be a real fighter. You can be a YouTuber, and then.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, that's what that's what doctors have the ability to. They have the ability to heal,
but not to become prophets.
Exactly, exactly.
You got this time, that time, yeah.
Exactly. So so that's the Jewish perspective, yeah. So struggle is allowed in Judaism. It's actually part of the whole. It's actually
struggle.
Yeah, struggle is the essence of being a Jew.
Absolutely, I understand it. That's why
I think it's actually the essence of human nature. By the way, I don't think it's just the Jew. It's just like the struggle.
It's very much, oh my God.
The heartbeat. It goes out and in. Everything's this back and forth, back and forth. You get enthusiastic and then you don't care.
Every time someone tells me I'm a tortured soul, I say to myself, yeah, I'm definitely Jew.
Yeah. Listen, it's not, it's also, you find a lot, it's also, but it's very accessible and it's very doable, it is doable. You just have to you have to work on your mind and your heart.
Doable what? Sorry.
Any part of it, any
Any
part
part.
of Judaism. Some people say,
Yes.
this part of Judaism is hard, this hard, but it says in Hashem says that it's not so foreign like in the sky or in across the sea. It's accessible and it's doable and
You talk about the
every
lifestyle, you're talking
lifestyle.
about
I'm talking about
everything.
the
You talk
lifestyle.
about if it comes to understand the depth of
Yes,
the
yes, even the
or
depth of the
the
depth, and
Torah
yes,
or the
yes, yes,
lifestyle itself to
yes,
embrace it and live
yes,
inside it and
yes. Both aspects are accessible because if it's not, then the Torah saying that it is then you're contradicting what the Torah tells us. The Torah says it's accessible every part. Yeah, people like to make excuses. It's too deep. I can't understand that. That's not for me. But this is hard. That's what I mean.
but it's
No,
yeah,
I'm
by the
not
way,
talking about the guy who's chronic. I'm talking about in general.
yeah, I understand. No, no. By the way, I agree with you absolutely. I think it's difficult. It's difficult times in general. That's not me making excuse. By the way, speaking from a general point of view, like I told you, a lot of people. Okay, I spoke with non-Jewish, but Jewish people as well. I believe, even though it's we got it in our DNAs, in our spiritual epigenetics, if you want, I believe, it's still. I think the concept of God Torah is very complicated for many people today. Now, even people who got goodwill, got good intentions, find it a bit hard to access. You understand?
Yeah, but I think the problem,
By the way,
my theory of why people
I'm
have
just telling you I'm not suggesting that I support or encourage that line of thinking. I'm just
I think a lot of people's agenda with God, yeah, comes from the fact that, and maybe I'm wrong, and you'll tell me if I'm wrong, comes from the fact that it's now fashionable to be an atheist, and they don't really think about it, and therefore all these people that they'll promote, it's like if you believe in God, you're non-scientific,
yeah.
and people don't want to be looked at
You
as
are ignorant. You
yeah,
are
people
primitive.
don't look at as
You are yeah.
stupid,
You
you know.
belong to one of these archaic times, and
It's like
and not in
once
a good way.
there was an experiment once, and you probably know all the background of this experiment. There was once experiment where they had a circle of people, let's say 100 people, and they asked them a very simple sum: 2 plus 2, and 99% of the people were told to say the wrong answer. But one, you understand, 99, and the
Yeah.
one guy was the guinea pig. Yeah, he
Okay.
was the one who didn't know the trick, and he went, "What's 4 plus 4? 1 plus 1?" And each one said 3, 5. They never said the right
Yeah.
answer.
Okay.
They all said exactly the same answer. What's 1 plus 1? 5. Everybody came to him, and what did you think he said?
We follow the
He
mistake.
followed the mistake. Why? Because he didn't
Exactly.
want to look stupid.
Yeah, no, that's the way it is. It comes from peer pressure. It comes from television, from the media, from the academy. It comes from everywhere. It's a designed network matrix that was created. Look, we spoke about it on Friday. I told you I need to go back to it. There is some translation, but Aldous Huxley, who wrote Brave New World, which is very much about social engineering, in my opinion, and you can relate to a lot of parts there. Even though I read it many years ago, I was very young when I read it, but I found it not for no reason. You understand? You find the right things for the right reason. It's very interesting that when I was 11 or 12 years old, back in Israel, started reading in English. I found we had in the library of the school two books that caught my attention, and one of them was the White Mountains by John Christopher, which is a very good book. It's a trilogy actually about a bunch of young teenagers somewhere in the future in a world under an alien occupation, and they are trying to revolt against it because it's all about mind control. It was a fantastic book, by the way, fantastic. This is not a typical alien B movie type of plot. It was really good adventure. And then Brave New World, which is an extremely important book. And actually said somewhere, if I remember correctly, he wrote about it later in his life. He said that for them, science was a certain crouch to release them from moral obligations. That they didn't really care. Listen, just let me tell you, they didn't really care so much about the how valid the scientific theory was, as much as it allowed them not to be accountable with their moral behavior. Meaning that it was easier not to give any responsibility, or just you feel more liberated sexually. You don't need to be accounted with God or morals or whatever. So the idea was, according to what he wrote, as I remember it, and I would like to go back to it to just investigate it again. We said that for them it was not so much about the science; it was more about like what it allowed them to do,
Mhm.
or to believe. You understand? So
Yeah.
it's not about the scientific method itself, but what you can get out of it. And this is where the problem of most people who are not scientists or are not scholars or are not interested. I find that the greatest champions. Sorry, I'll let you speak in a second. But
No, no, I'm just interested.
But the greatest champions, the people who champion science the most, are the people who are very ignorant of science, of scientific method. They don't care about it, don't know about it. They don't even understand what scientific method is about. I got a very good book by Karl Popper about scientific method. Another modern Jewish philosopher. He was assimilated. I think the family converted to Christianity.
Mm.
One more of these characters, but he was a brilliant man when it comes to being an intellectual. And I think that most people are not even aware of scientific method, what it means, how it actually works.
Mm.
But it's good. It makes them feel more comfortable. But then there is a void at the same time, especially, and I saw it with a lot of Jewish people. I don't think, that's my personal opinion, that atheism exists in Jewish people. Even if they behave like that, you understand? Even if they live in contradictions, and they will live in suffer for the rest of their lives. You understand? That's the way it is. Unfortunately, I think it comes from the very top. It comes from certain, again, net that was created. I grew up inside it. I saw it. We had a very little awareness, very little consciousness of Torah, of God, of what it really means. You understand? It's not about, because for us it was mostly about the slave, how to be a slave,
Mm.
mindless slave. You understand? Just coming back to how you started, which is brilliant. Now I think about it. This podcast. For us growing up, it was just about, oh yeah, you're just a mindless slave. You have to be constantly, just follow orders. You become like a machine, become like a computer.
Mhm.
Do this, do that, and nothing else. That's it. And if not, you're going to be punished. And everything which is fun and pleasurable and good in life is not going to be part of your existence. Yes.
Okay.
You understand? So no, I don't know. I can continue. I can continue
No,
talking.
no, I'm just interested. I'm just interested. I
So
just
so that's what I remember from my experiences. But I think that also because who we are, because of our long heritage, because of we are coming from. For me, you see, even if I don't live by all the commandments, we are only defined because of by the Torah. I don't see anything about us as cultural, as ethnic. I know, no, sorry, it exists definitely, but it's only derivatives. It's only the outcome. Sorry, not derivatives. It's the outcome of the Torah, because without it, it would not have existed. You understand? It's only because of what defines us being Jews is first and foremost the Torah still, and from there you had the ethnic groups and
I'm not sure if I agree with that. I'm not sure if I agree with that. I think that we know that Jews precede the Torah. The Jewish soul precedes the Torah
okay.
because it says in the Torah it says that Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe. It says that means the Jews had to exist before the Torah was created.
But we had
So
the nation existed,
no,
yes,
so
but
the
not
Jewish
just they
soul
existed.
precedes any Torah or commandment or whether we do good or bad. Hashem always, you understand. So the soul does. Our Jewish soul does exist before that. It doesn't make you a good. It doesn't make you a better or a worse Jew whether you keep the commandments or not. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
from an essential point of view.
Understand?
Isn't all Jews are the same,
That's
or
yeah.
on a highest of high level.
Yes.
Okay, but what I think is that how do we live as the best Jew? How do we reveal our essence of that core? Is through the Torah.
Mm-hmm.
The Torah allows us to bring out what our essence is, which is Hashem Himself. You understand? Which
And
the level that
understand.
precedes the Torah.
So what I'm saying, okay, I understand
You
it,
understand?
and what I'm saying is that since the Torah was given to us, that put us inside a certain frame, inside a certain parameter which defined us. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It defined us because it reveals who we really are.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And I think that everything else that we know today, because we call what I'm a cultural Jew. What is a cultural Jew?
Yeah, I don't know.
You understand? No, no.
The cultural Jews. I mean, it's like
You got Rosh Hashanah now coming in Israel. I know what it means, by the way. I'm saying it rhetorically. It's what is a cultural Jew? I'm going to celebrate Rosh Hashanah, but I don't follow any commandments really. I just celebrate it because it's a nice social event.
it's part of
Yeah,
our tradition that there is a Rosh Hashanah.
yeah,
But all the different commands about apples dipped in honey and pomegranates and
yeah,
this thing,
yeah.
that's not so important.
And if they are going to be there, it's mainly for the optics. I'm not trying to be cynical, by the way. I want the best for our people, really. I mean, I know that I
You're
sound
doing very well being cynical.
I know I'm very critical, but because I'm very critical of myself. But I just trying to see
But there's
also
also something very beautiful about it that they could not celebrate anything. You understand? There's two sides to the
yeah,
screen.
you are very Chabad. Huh? You see always the good side. Yeah. No, listen. it's not the point. I'm not trying to lekatreg. I'm not trying to be the
Yeah, we got
the
enough of
persecutor.
those.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I'm doing it too much to myself as well. Maybe I deserve it. I don't know, but I'll just tell you.
No, you don't deserve it.
From a spiritual point of view. Okay, no, I agree with you, but I guess it's my nature. But the point that I'm trying to make is that I know from my experiences that these are going to be social events, mainly. You understand?
Fine.
I'm not
That's
against it. I'm not saying that you
from
should cancel it.
no, but I'm saying that's from an external point of view. Yes, fine.
Yes.
I'm out of like the social, but from an internal point of view,
You are
they're taking
celebrating
out the
Rosh
time.
Hashanah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you still
No.
celebrate, even if it's mainly
Even
for the food and for people coming
yes,
and gossiping
yes.
and
That's
saying lashon
all.
hara and all
Yes,
that.
that's all for for the sake of
Yeah,
heaven.
אם לא לשמור בסוף נהיה לשמור. No,
Exactly, exactly. The essence of all the lolishmod of the
נהיה
not the
לשמור.
right reasons. The essence is the good reasons.
It's actually very true. I got to say, not necessarily about that, but I do agree with you. Sorry, I don't want to sound like I disagree because I do see the point. A lot of things that happened, and it's true that לא לשמו נהיה לשמו. It's true. You do certain things, and you find yourself that you are really going astray, but then you find that it actually threw you back. It's almost like a counter.
Can you give an example? Oh, you don't want to.
No, it's a bit too personal, but I think that what is happening, it's like counter steering in cycling. It's amazing. It's like the God's way of counter steering, meaning that you know that if you are cycling, especially with motorcycles, not so much with bikes, but if you are riding bikes competitively
You
and
mean
fast,
motorcycles? Like
so when you're coming to a nice corner and you wanna be very very smooth on the corner and just go through it as fast as you can. So instead of like just leaning into the corner, you do a little counter. You give like a counter to the steering itself against the side of the corner, and then the bike, because of the laws of physics, allows you to fall boom into the corner perfectly. Beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. I remember when I discovered it many years ago when I used to cycle back in Israel. I said to myself, "Wow, this is."
motorcycle.
No, my bikes. You can do it with bike. I never was into. I love motorcycles, but I never. I used to watch the racing, well, Valentino Rossi and all the greats. But I'm just saying, you understand the concept of counter steering. Before you go into the bend, let's say it's a left hand, you just do a bit to the right like that, give it a little push, and then the laws of physics throw you like that.
Mm.
So this is what I find a lot of times happening with the lo lishmo niya lishmo. Understand? You just like move, you turn.
Which part of this analogy is the lolishma?
Maybe it's almost like you are trying to turn against the curve itself, and then but because you did it, the laws of physics turn you into the curve much more smoothly.
So you actually because you're doing it for the counter reason.
Yes.
Yeah, you're pointing this way, and
Yeah.
actually, without you realizing, you're actually forcing you to do it for the
Yeah.
right
You.
reason.
Yeah.
That's a very good analogy. I like that. I like
Maybe,
that.
yes, I think so. Yeah, I will have to think about it more later, because I like analyzing things. But in general, yes, I see it coming in my life as well. Lo lishmo, but then yeah,
Yeah, but
lishmo.
as I said, the pasuk, the Mishnah said, but it says the toich shalolishmo balishmo.
Yeah.
And what does toich mean?
You tell me, please. I'm
Toich
listening.
means
That's what I'm saying to you.
toich means the inside.
Yeah, toch. Yeah, toch. Yes. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
of
yeah.
course.
It's not like two separate actions.
Hmm.
It's not like you do this action which will lead to this action.
Yes.
That's the simple explanation.
Yeah.
But it's the toch is that this action you're doing now is for the real reason.
I
The
understand.
essence of it
So
is
even
even
to begin with, it
yeah
was lishmo.
yeah
Even yeah,
even the essence of the act was lishma.
that's exactly it's the
Yeah,
same. Yes,
yeah, and just
counter
like
stirring.
yeah, and that's by the way, we found this a lot by Jews in general. Like there's this famous story about who the guy who the Baal Shem Tov hears after his Pesach Seder, he hears the voice from heaven. I think it's a
Mhm.
Baal Shem Tov story. He hears a voice from heaven that says, um, his Passover Seder, right,
Mhm.
was good, but the best was this guy down the road. So he's like, what? Let's go see what this guy down the road did. Why is he the best? So he went to visit him, and what does he see? He sees this drunk on the floor, in his own vomit. Yeah, he doesn't understand. He's the best. So he says, "Tell me, what did you do?" He said, "Rabbi, leave me alone." He said, "No, tell me what you did." He says, "I don't know. Before Passover, I was so drunk. Yeah, I was in my house. My wife prepared this whole thing. right? She woke me up from my sleep after kind of sobering up at night. She brings me to the table. I'm half, ill, and and suddenly I see there's wine, there's matzah, there's moror, but but I don't know anything. I'm an ignoramus, but no idea what the hell to do. But I know that I like wine, yeah, and I like spicy food, and whatever crackers, okay. So what I did, you know what I said? I don't know how to do this Passover Seder. I took all the matzah, I put it in a bowl. I took all the horseradish, I put it in the bowl. I took the wine, I put it in the bowl, and I had this big mixture of wine, everything together. I didn't have to read Hebrew or English or whatever thing. I said, listen, God, you took us out of Egypt. Now we are free and now we celebrate. And he drank the whole thing and he passed out again. And we see that it was so genuine. It was so for the right reasons. Even though it wasn't according to halakha, even though I think
So
that,
נהיה לשמו.
but it was the
Um,
best Seder upstairs.
yeah,
Hashem loved it the
if
most.
it's not for its sake, then it becomes for its sake.
Yeah, you understand? So it was an amazing, so yeah, listen, just going back to the original thing, I just think that sometimes and everyone have yeah, I think that coming to terms with God, his existence and his influence and everything, um is is unfortunately who are the voice pieces of the atheist agenda. They're very loud and it's very much pushed.
It's pushed, yeah. They are loud and pushed. You're right about it.
Yeah, it's like
But I think they leave people in a very terrible place, in a void. You leave a void to people. That's how I feel about it, and I found it to be, by the way. And I don't listen to them too much, but I do from time to time. I had the chance listening to this guy, and he's supposed to be the atheist messiah. Yeah, what an oxymoron, yeah. Well, it's always like that, no?
who's the atheist messiah?
I think Dawkins, maybe.
Oh, Dawkins, yeah.
Yeah, I was listening to him. I got very depressed and bored. Honestly, I don't. And when you think about it, you see, and that's the sad thing about, if anything, is that when you think about the levels, and I had the chance to read a bit, and I don't consider. I mean, you see all the books here, and I don't consider to myself to be anything. But the level of scholars that I had a chance to read, or even sitting in the yeshiva, I remember sitting sometimes with the bachurim there. They show me something in the Talmud, and I think to myself, my God, the levels here. I only started getting really interested. I always liked it, low key, doing it not for school. I was just by myself and never talking with people about it, but I really enjoyed geometry and I was good with that. But I only started investigating and falling deeply in love with mathematics because of the yeshiva, because I've seen the Talmud, because I've seen this. And then I listened to this guy, Dawkins. And again, it's not disrespect, it's just my opinion about it. And I said, my God, this is such a lightweight. Do you really compare? I mean, even from intellectual point of view. And I'm not saying that if you are a great philosopher because of that, then
What
you
about
don't.
that guy who was in that wheelchair? What was his name?
Hawkins.
Yeah.
I don't know much about his opinions about it. Uh, probably was a great physicist, maybe an overrated physicist in some ways. I think that again, he was probably a brilliant man. I'm not here going to tell you that was just an average guy, but I think it suited the agenda, the fact that he was who he was, and it was a very, but he had merit. I think there is I believe maybe a German man. I need to find him. He's a physicist himself. He is a very strong physicist. A modern. He lives in this era, and he got a YouTube channel. And if I'm correct about it, and I'm going to check it, he did a video clip, some video clips, and he called him the most overrated physicist of all times. And I think that Hawkins is there as well on the
Yeah.
list. Yeah, yeah. And if you want to know Albert Einstein,
That could just be
he's not there.
that could be scientists bantering with each other.
Yeah, maybe, but no. I think from what I watched, because I do love physics, but I prefer, if I got the time, to invest the time in mathematics more than in physics, even though it's probably the closest you can get when it comes to quantum mechanics and mathematics, because it's theoretical physics, because it starts here very much here. It's not empirical physics. But I believe that he probably made a good podcast about it. I would like to watch it. He
Mm.
seems to be a very serious man. But coming back to atheism, like
Maybe watch and then put it at the bottom for other people if it's a
Yes, yes, man, I should put the link. Yes, I should go back and try to find it. He
I
talked.
did watch it, and then
He
yeah.
talked about Feynman as well. I think Feynman went to the overrated physicist as well. You remember Richard Feynman, a
I'm
Jewish
not a
man
big monk in
in physics. Yeah,
yeah, in who the
but he was.
not Albert Einstein.
Ah, of course. Yeah.
And that's about it.
Everyone knows. But Feynman, for example, I think he was a great talker, great educator. I think his real power was in his power of being able to express himself, articulate his ideas. Fantastic man. He was brilliant. He was really a quoting machine. You could get so many sound bites out of him and good stuff. Really, he knew how to relate to people, how to educate. Definitely, even if he has not achieved great, how should I say, discoveries which are as profound as the others. Let's say I don't know, like Niels Bohr or Albert Einstein. Yet his ability to express the ideas, and you could see how he was mesmerizing the students with his
Hmm.
ability. He was very very charismatic, but it's not just charisma as you see today. A lot of talkers, especially on YouTube and whatever, they become, it's mostly the charisma of it's vain, it's vanity as well. So there is no substance behind the charisma. He had it. He was a clever man.
Interesting.
Yes. But there's so much to talk about anyway.
No, I'm just as I was saying, if if we were like sons and if we like slaves, yeah.
Yeah. So coming back to that, yeah.
No, I'm just saying it's just such a. It's just I think that that idea is in every part,
Yeah.
both in physics and that. I just wanted, yeah, I just wanted to point out the fact.
I'll tell you something interesting. You know what? Now I got to tell you something. I have a lot of conversation. I'm going to do an analogy. I got something I think down that alley. I speak a lot of conversations with my friend Ascalo Jacob, who I told you is a tremendous boxing coach, philosopher of fighting, fantastic man. He lives in Israel, and we spoke about it. And you have to understand, like boxing, for example, how romantic boxing looks to people. It's one of the most romanticized sports ever, especially in the good old golden era of boxing. Today, for me, it looks like a circus act. To be honest with you, I'm getting very tired of what is happening. There are still good fighters around, like Terence Crawford, but I'm not too happy with what is happening. But yet, you are romanticizing. We spoke about it so many times. But this is not a romantic sport. It's a sport of sufferer. You understand? I mean, what I'm trying to say is that I love it, but you have to be ab- you have to take so much suffer, so much pain, so much. It's such a stoic sport. You know what I mean? It's almost like you have to be romantic about not being romantic about it. You understand?
No,
Okay, let me explain. This is a place where you better have more the approach of the slave. You understand? You become a slave to the craft. You better be like that because you got better chances to survive and be healthy because you're going to take some punishment and somebody's going to take tremendous punishment. And I watched Chris Eubank Sr. You know Chris Eubank Sr. talking on Talksport with Simon Jordan. It was another guy there, Jim, I think. Jim, I'm not sure this, maybe White. And he gave them a great interview there, which was very difficult as well because he spoke about his son. I feel sorry for that relationships at this moment between them.
yeah,
And I like his son as well. But the way I love Senior, the way he speaks, he's such a advocate and such a messenger of good old school etiquette of fighting. And he says about it, he told his son, don't get into this business when he was young. This is not what you think. This is not about sitting in Instagram making posts or looking good, or especially when your body looks so nice and you are, you shaped so well and you're ripped, and then you're fighting people and you. This is not you. If you want to survive it, if you want to be good, you got to be very not romantic about it. You understand? You have to be a slave to it. You have to
mm,
to be like Marvin Agler, who was a Spartan, who was a person who just like lived inside, like Rocky Marciano. He had this lifestyle. You remember Rocky Marciano, the undefeated heavyweight champion of the world, 49-0,
mm.
and he beat Joe Louis, Ezra Charles, just Joe Walcott, Archie Moore. And you have to be something like that. You understand? He was like such a. He could. It's about pain. It's about constantly going through that difficulty. It's not about, oh yeah, I'm just a fighter. You understand?
I do understand, but I think there is uh, a romance. I don't know if the word romance is, but there is an aspect of a Ben of a son in boxing,
Okay.
which is
I'm sure it exists as well, by the way. Yes.
no, there is not necessarily the, you know. even if it's they used to call it what, the beautiful art. What do they used to call it?
The noble art. It is
The
a noble art, definitely.
just
The
the
art of
confidence that it
self-defense.
gives you.
Of course, no, definitely.
There's a
It's
lot of areas which is enjoyable and of you understand. But I do understand how, in order for you to be the best of the best, you have to be
yeah,
actually tough.
especially if you are a professional.
Now, do you want to know something interesting? But I
Yeah,
don't want to talk about too much about it because I haven't finished the book yet. But this book that I'm reading, um, it's very interesting. In the 1939s, and actually, when I read this, I kind of like, oh, I don't know if I want to be, I don't know if I want to watch, I don't want to be involved in boxing anymore. Why?
tell me.
Because I'm just thinking it through. I'm still in the thought process. Yeah,
Hmm.
is that Hitler and the Nazis, right? You he in the 1930s, 33, he was he brought boxing into Germany. That everybody had to do boxing. If you want to be a soldier, you had to do boxing.
Good idea. Yeah,
Boxing was part of being an Aryan individual.
it's a very good idea. It's not because of being an Aryan. It's just a
But I'm
smart
saying
idea.
he
Yeah,
he
yeah.
saw it as
He had a good
like
sense about certain
the
things. Yeah, he was
the
a satanic entity, but he had a good
and at the same time, who were the majority of the best of the boxers in those days were the Jews.
Jews, of course, but in America they
So it
were
was
the
so funny
greatest,
how
and not just in America, actually.
his idea of boxing is what makes you this perfect Aryan, and how there's a lot of Jews in boxing. You
Yes,
know, the
including Max Schmeling's manager was a Jew, by
the
the
whole the whole the whole thing is just very very interesting. Why boxing could have decided, I don't know, wrestling.
I can tell you exactly.
Do you understand? Which, when I read it, it made me think. At the moment, I'm still in the thought process. You know, if I don't want to have, such an evil, whether I want to be associated or anything which he and that ideology thinks is good.
Oh well, but this is you can make
You
this.
understand?
I do listen. You can make this decision, but this is like saying to me that every great idea that a bad person is going to embrace, or then it has to be a bad idea because he embraced it, or because he decided to adopt it to his lifestyle or to the lifestyle of the people that he's ruling.
But not necessarily. But if it's an idea, if it comes from something which is
It's a
essentially evil,
I don't think it's evil. I don't think that boxing is
no,
evil.
he's evil.
He's no, but he hasn't invented the concept. The concept. Look, Jews were the greatest fighters in the 20s. I mean, they have some of the greatest fighters, and it's amazing how many great professionals you had. I did research about it years ago in percentages. You would not believe how many Jews you had as professionals back in the States, and they were the best of the best. They were the cream of fighting. They and black people and Italians and Irish people as well, immigrants. They were the cream of it. Believe me. So, and how many German champions do I really know? Remember, not many. Max Schmeling definitely is the only person to defeat Joe Louis when Joe Louis was still a young man.
No, but I'm just saying, if somebody is evil, I understand your point that
Yeah, but so
it's not
what? So he
necessarily that
decided.
somebody is
So
evil.
it's like it's the
No, but
big.
everything, therefore, that I don't know. There's just like there's people who are do bad things and have good and bad decisions. For example, some will say Trump, Biden. They're not evil. I mean, some will say they're evil, but I'm saying in general they're not evil. They're not the epitome or essence of evil.
Yeah, but that was a good part.
Us in Jews, as our culture has, if the Romans thought this was a good idea, let's keep away from it.
Yeah.
You understand? If the Egyptians, keep away with it.
Listen,
It means there's something wrong. You know,
but I don't
there's
think it's.
something essentially wrong. Or there's something wrong. If
I
this
don't.
is if let's say I put evil in a box. Forget about if it's Hitler. If evil is coming up with this is good to
But
happen.
what attracts evil, evil is attracted to. That's the way you look at it.
I'm
But
just
look,
saying. I'm
I
just.
understand. No, no, but I'm not against it. Look, but I don't think that
Like
that's
for
the.
example, to think animals are better than humans. Is that a good idea?
No.
That's a bad idea. Yeah, but he thought animals were better than humans.
Yeah,
He came
that's
up with
definitely. But a
right.
lot of things that he has is taught are absolutely wrong, and some of them are satanic as well. As far as I'm concerned. Look. Let me ask you a question, Rabbi, because you like this type of questions. Now, not long ago, actually, in fact,
Just one more thing I'd say,
okay, please.
and just one more thing. Also, this whole agenda, which is like he's got like Germany first, like you have like
Yeah.
America first, Germany. This idea, this concept of being very insular and not caring about others, first care about ourselves, then care about others. First we put the mask on ourselves, then we put the mask on the children.
Mhm.
You know, that's a very Hitler. It's a very evil idea.
He was evil. He had a lot of evil ideas, but I don't think that him saying that you got to box is a bad idea. It's a very good idea, especially if you got an army. And
Why?
wait, let me just tell you something. Do you know that Oppenheimer now became a huge film? You know, Christopher Nolan. I watched it. I told you, which I don't go to the cinema much, but I went to watch it. And Albert Einstein, when he wrote the letter to the American president before the Manhattan Project started, and it was the most expensive project ever when it comes to all these secret or used to be a secret projects. Okay, they invested incredible money in that to develop an atomic bomb. What did Albert Einstein say to him? He said, I know these people, I've been there, I live there, I come from there, I come from Europe, it's Swiss, German, you know, Hitler is a lunatic, they are developing an atomic bomb. If you are not going to start doing it, they are going to get it before us. So Hitler thought it's a great idea to have an atomic bomb, right? Of course, it makes sense that you should have an atomic bomb. So
The atomic bomb is the height of evil.
it
Exactly.
is not.
Is an atomic bomb a good idea?
But what would you do? No, no, I know this is not, by the way, the analogy to boxing, but
Uh,
I'm just trying to understand
if
what
you
would you.
only do it, for example, you only created it so you could defeat your enemies, but the central idea is bad.
Yeah, no, I'm just relating now to the idea. No, of course, yes, but then, would you think that it's a good idea for the American to developing their? You said okay.
If no, the Americans didn't even think about it because it's an evil idea to create a bomb that wipes out half the country or half the world.
Yeah, I'm not
The
sure that
only
they haven't thought about it,
okay,
but they had
that's
to
it.
defeat it. But they had to
That,
defeat Hitler to
yeah.
the.
Do I think that we should box the Germans? Yes, because you have to defend yourself. But essentially, should we? It's only a thought in progress. I'm just thinking
No,
about it.
I understand, I understand. I gave you this another thing to think about, by the way, not necessarily as an analogy to boxing. Boxing for me is different. I don't compare it with the atomic bomb. I think it's a noble pursuit.
Even
You don't need to be professional. Look, professional boxing, for example, always been involved with corruption. I mean, there is corruption with unfortunately, if it's a moral corruption, if it was with the other types of corruption, boxing is not an easy, not a clean business. It's a dirty business in many
but you
ways.
talk about the outside of boxing. I'm talking about the boxing sport itself.
Yes, there's
The fact that evil, we'll call him, thinks that out of all the sports that evil could be attracted to is boxing. Shouldn't that give us a point to ponder and take a step back and say,
no,
not wrestling,
not at all. No.
not other martial
Oh,
arts,
but it makes
even though
sense.
they did do wrestling,
But
no concentration.
evil can come up with some things that make sense as well. It doesn't mean that these other ideas made sense or these other ideas I agree with.
But
To
then
like exterminating people, it makes sense that boxing is the best art to teach the art of. Look, let me tell you something. Now,
it goes back to your joke, by the way.
what?
It goes back. This argument goes back to your joke where the mother says,
Yeah,
at the end,
the man, yeah, you make
that
money.
means essentially,
But I thought, but
it's
for me,
bad.
it's much,
But
yes, it's much deeper and
you
more
know,
philosophical than that.
is
I'm
money
sorry.
good or bad?
I'm not personally,
Pursuing
I'm not,
if the
no,
pursuit
pursuing
of
money is not good in my opinion.
pursuing
Um,
money is bad.
yeah,
So if you take the joke, it's a
yeah,
funny joke, but
okay, but I don't think,
essentially it's bad.
yeah, but this is a man who became professional, who was a champion. You don't need to become a professional, but I think it's definitely good for people, especially young people, to study boxing. Yes, yes, without becoming a professional, I will not advise, listen to me. If I had now 100 people, 100 young people, all of them boxing, they love boxing, I would not advise them to become professionals. I would tell them exactly like Chris Eubank and a senior, and he saw it, been there, done it, been a champion. He knows it, and I haven't done it. And I'm telling you that he's absolutely right. I would not advise them to become professionals, but when it
Forget about
comes,
professionals. I'm not talking
yeah,
about
but I
professionals.
understand, but I'm telling you, that's I know where you're leading. So I'm saying, but when it comes to actual art, to the actual discipline, yes, do it. And the fact that Adolf Hitler thought about it, it's a good idea. Yes, he
Not
made
only one second, he didn't think, oh, it's a good idea. It was he
the
pushed it.
best idea. Yes,
It's
the best
in
idea
his.
for his soul.
I've never read Mein Kampf, but according to this book, it's written there. It's written in
Listen,
part of
so you
his
all
big
right.
plan. That you can't be a proper human being
I'm
without boxing.
Rabbi, what do you think is the probability that if you read now Mein Kampf, that you will find that all the ideas that Hitler liked,
I don't.
all of them are just evil, and you can never live with any of them anymore as part of your life?
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. If it
Hitler would
comes to
say,
his
"Yeah,
decision,
I love the sunshine. No, no, the sunshine is bad. If evil,
what? Just saying, if evil is real. I don't think you. You know what? It's stuck a really good question.
no, I'm asking. I know that you like good questions. You like difficult questions.
I would listen. I've never read Mein Kampf. Should I go read Mein Kampf? I don't know. But I'm saying the fact there's a difference between saying I like the sun we're saying that if you don't,
The sun is essential for us.
if you,
Yes,
yeah, if you
yes.
don't go out and sunbathe for 4
Not
hours a
for
day,
some,
you're
but
not a real
no, no,
human
no.
being.
Sorry, and listen. When it
There's
comes,
a difference.
I understand, but listen.
It's like this.
Yeah, no, but
Like,
I'm just saying.
you're not a human being if you are not.
But listen, regardless of
Let me tell you something about
no, it
this.
doesn't, no, not at all. I mean, I definitely
You're not even phased by it.
listen. No, no, no. You have to listen, please. When it comes, no, please, because we talked a lot about it. Trust me, I'm coming from a background of thinking so much about boxing in general, not necessarily in relationship to Hitler or to the Germans. We spoke a lot about it. It's the best form of self-defense, in my opinion. I think that there is no art in the street that can help you. I mean, this is not for the street. Of course, if you're competing, it's under certain rules in a ring. It's different. But for me, boxing is probably the very best thing you can study in order to defend yourself, and it can be very useful in a combat field if you're as a soldier. Of course, so when you're a soldier, it's a good idea to do it. Do I think that boxing is Torah, or meaning that it's a Jewish thing? No, that has nothing to do with Hitler. By the way, I always said it. I don't think it's part of our lifestyle. I don't think it's something that, Barney Ross, who was one of the greatest champions, Dov Ber. Dov Ber. He changed his name. He came from Haredi family, and he changed his name not to bring shame to the family, because he was a fighter. You understand? I understand that this is not something that you always used to say to them. His father used to say, his father got murdered. He saw the murder of his father. He was a shopkeeper or something. He said to him, "This is for Goy boxing. Forget about Hitler now. Put Hitler aside for a second. He said it for Goy."
Yeah, also in this book, his
Yeah,
father also said it from the day.
of course, but we understand. We know it. We know it. But
Yeah, but so then if that's the case,
Mhm.
maybe we should do this in the next podcast and
Yeah.
let's discuss this further.
Okay, yeah, you got a bit. Yeah, you already are okay.
No, because I
No,
can
it's
go for
fantastic.
another hour. And probably, I think we're going to carry on in the next podcast.
Okay, no problem.
Okay,
No
so
problem.
keep the suspense.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
We'll see you next time.
See you. Bye. Uh,